The council room was huge, filled with creatures from 100 different worlds. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. Kyle Harrison stood at the human platform, trying not to show how nervous he felt. The other aliens were staring at him, and not in a friendly way. A large bug-like alien named Jathik spoke first. He had 4 eyes and a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "So the humans want to join the peacekeepers? You barely know how to travel between stars. What makes you think you belong here?" Kyle took a deep breath. "Earth has a lot of experience with fighting and defense. We have been learning these skills for thousands of years." The room filled with sounds that Kyle realized were laughter. A being made of shining crystal called Shenra spoke next. Her voice sounded like breaking glass. "We looked at your military records, human. You still use guns that shoot metal bullets. We have plasma weapons and particle beams. Your tools are old and weak." Kyle kept his face calm. "We still want to take the qualification tests." Jathik leaned back in his chair. His shell reflected the lights in the room. "Fine. We will set up a test at the proving grounds on Tertius Station. I am sure it will teach you an important lesson." The way he said it made it clear he thought the humans would fail badly. 3 days later, Lieutenant Danny Pierce walked onto the observation deck at Tertius Station. He had 11 other human soldiers with him. Below them was a massive arena that could create any kind of battlefield you could imagine. Dozens of different alien species had gathered to watch. Most of them looked curious, but also like they thought they were better than the humans. "Look at what they are carrying," a lizard-like Draxian officer said loudly. "Those are guns that shoot bullets. Do they not know how weak those weapons are?" Lieutenant Amy Sullivan stood next to Danny. She held her rifle tighter. "Let them talk now," she said quietly. "We will show them what we can do soon." The test rules appeared on a glowing screen. Each species would face harder and harder challenges that tested how well they could shoot, how smart they were in battle, and how well they could adapt. Most species sent their best warriors. The Vrexians brought their famous Shadow Guard. The Karathi sent their prism dancers, who could bend light itself, and the humans stood there with their simple rifles and basic armor. "This will not take long," Jathik announced from his seat high above the arena. "Begin the tests." The Vrexian Shadow Guard went first. They carried plasma rifles that glowed with deadly energy. The computer created a fake city with lots of enemies hiding in buildings. The Vrexians moved like dancers, smooth and fast. Their targeting computers found enemies before they even saw them with their own eyes. Bright bolts of plasma flew through the air and destroyed the targets. When they finished, their score appeared. 47 targets destroyed. Time 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Accuracy 83%. The watching aliens made approving sounds. The Karathi prism dancers went next. Their crystal bodies bent and reflected light as they moved through the same fake city. Their particle beams cut through walls and targets with perfect precision. Their score came up. 51 targets destroyed. Time 2 minutes and 58 seconds. Accuracy 87%. Jathik nodded, looking satisfied. "Good work. Now let us watch the humans try." Danny Pierce led his squad into the arena. Behind him, Sergeant Jake Morrison checked his rifle one more time. Corporal Lisa Brooks moved to the front, breathing slow and steady. They did not have energy shields or powered armor, just normal tactical gear and their guns that shot bullets. The fake city appeared around them. "Stay with me," Danny said quietly. The squad moved forward like they had practiced 1,000 times. The first target appeared in a window on the 3rd floor of a building, 400 meters away. Lisa saw it and aimed before the computer even marked it. She pulled the trigger once. The target fell. "Multiple enemies on the rooftops," Jake called out. The squad scattered to hiding spots with smooth, practiced movements. Each soldier found their targets, adjusted their aim for wind that was not even there but their bodies expected anyway, and fired. One shot. One target down. Again and again. Up in the observation deck, the aliens had stopped talking. They watched the human squad move through the simulation like water flowing down a hill. Every movement had a purpose. Every shot was careful and planned. "They are not using targeting computers," Shenra said, confusion in her glass-like voice. "How are they finding targets so fast?" A human technician named Chris Taylor smiled just a little. "We do not need targeting computers. We have been doing this the natural way for a very long time." The squad kept moving through the fake city. When enemies hid behind walls, the humans did not waste bullets shooting at the walls. They waited, patient and still, for the tiny moment when a target showed itself. Then they fired. When the test ended, the scoreboard changed. 63 targets destroyed. Time 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Accuracy, 98%. Nobody in the observation deck made a sound. There must be a mistake, Jathic said, his voice shaking a little. Check the computer systems for errors. The computers checked out fine. Everything was working perfectly. Should we move to the next test? Kyle Harrison asked. His voice was calm and neutral. The aliens looked at each other. Some looked confused. Some looked worried. And a few looked scared. They had expected the humans to fail. They had expected to laugh at the primitive species with their old-fashioned weapons. But the humans had just beaten the best warriors in the galaxy, using nothing but skill, practice, and patience. And this was only the first test. Danny and his squad stood in the arena waiting. Their rifles were ready. Their faces were calm. They had proven that sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and they were just getting started. The proving grounds fell silent as everyone realized the same thing. The humans were not weak. They were not primitive. They were dangerous in a way the galaxy had never seen before, and it was too late to take back the challenge. The second test was different from the first one. This time the targets would move. The computer would create waves of enemies attacking from all directions. The test was designed to see how well soldiers could handle stress and chaos. Jathic announced the rules from his observation seat. This test will show us who are real warriors and who just got lucky. You must defend your position against 7 waves of attackers. Good luck. The Vrexian Shadow Guard entered the arena again. They set up their defensive position and waited. When the first wave of enemies appeared, the Vrexians opened fire immediately. Their plasma rifles lit up the arena with continuous streams of bright energy. They fired constantly, filling the air with deadly bolts. The watching aliens nodded with approval. This was how modern warfare looked. Overwhelming firepower. Never stop shooting. Dominate the battlefield with superior technology. The Vrexians survived 4 waves before they ran out of power cells for their weapons. Their score appeared. 137 enemies destroyed. Ammunition efficiency, 42%. They had wasted more than half their shots. The Karathi went next. Their approach was similar. Constant fire, using their powerful particle beams to cut down anything that moved. They made it through 5 waves before their weapons overheated and shut down. 161 enemies destroyed. Ammunition efficiency, 47%. Acceptable, Jathic said. Now the humans. Danny Pierce and his squad entered the arena. They set up their defensive positions, each soldier covering a specific area. The first wave of enemies appeared in the distance, running toward them. Hold your fire, Danny said calmly. The aliens in the observation deck looked confused. Why were the humans not shooting? The enemies were getting closer. Are they frozen with fear? A Draxian officer asked. The enemies came closer. Closer. The humans did not move. They barely seemed to breathe. Their fingers rested on their triggers, but they did not fire. Then the enemies crossed an invisible line that only the humans could see. Fire, Danny said. The arena exploded with controlled bursts of gunfire, but it was not wild spraying like the other species had done. Each human fired in short, precise bursts, 2 or 3 bullets, then they shifted to a new target. No wasted ammunition, no panic. Sergeant Katie Wells switched between 3 different targets in 2 seconds. Each one fell with a single burst. Corporal Ben Foster covered his area with mechanical efficiency. His movements were small and careful, conserving energy. Reloading, Lisa called out. Her voice was calm even though simulated enemies were charging at her position. She dropped her empty magazine, pulled a new one from her vest, slammed it into her rifle, and was firing again in less than 2 seconds. The motion looked like magic, it was so smooth. The first wave fell. Then the second. The humans kept their positions, kept their cool, and kept firing with the same deadly accuracy. Up in the observation deck, the aliens were noticing something else. The humans never stopped talking to each other. They called out enemy positions, ammunition counts, and tactical changes. And they were doing all of this without computers or electronic systems, just voices and hand signals. Left flank, 3 targets behind the barrier, Jake called out. I see them, Amy replied. She waited for one enemy to peek out, then fired. The target dropped. She waited again. Another peek, another shot, another target down. The third wave came, then the fourth. The aliens watching had gone completely silent. They had never seen anything like this. The humans moved like they were part of a single organism. When one soldier reloaded, another covered their sector. When ammunition ran low, they adjusted their firing patterns to conserve bullets. Fifth wave incoming, Danny announced. Same drill. Make every shot count. The enemies came faster now in greater numbers. The other species would have panicked, would have started spraying bullets everywhere. The humans just kept doing what they had been doing. One target, one shot, moved to the next. Katie ran out of ammunition in her primary weapon. Without hesitation, she smoothly transitioned to her sidearm. Smaller bullets, but her accuracy did not change at all. She kept firing, kept hitting, kept fighting. The sixth wave appeared. The aliens in the observation deck were leaning forward now, watching intently. Some had stopped breathing. How were the humans still going? How did they still have ammunition? Because they are not missing, Shenra said quietly, answering the unspoken question. Every bullet finds a target. They are not suppressing. They are eliminating. The seventh and final wave materialized. More enemies than all the previous waves combined. They came from every direction. A tide of simulated hostiles meant to overwhelm any defender. The humans adjusted their positions slightly, tightened their formation, and kept shooting. The sound of their rifles was steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. None of the wild, panicked firing of soldiers under pressure. Just controlled, methodical execution. When the last enemy fell, the arena went quiet. The humans lowered their weapons and checked their gear. They looked calm, barely even breathing hard. The scoreboard updated. 283 enemies destroyed. All 7 waves completed. Ammunition efficiency 94%. They had barely wasted any bullets at all. The observation deck erupted in shocked chatter. Aliens spoke over each other in a dozen different languages, all asking the same questions. How? Why? What were they seeing? Kyle Harrison stood up. May I explain something to the council? The room went quiet. Everyone wanted to hear this. Humans evolved differently than most species, Kyle began. We did not grow claws or armor or venom. We did not become the biggest or the strongest. Instead, we became persistence hunters. We learned to track prey for days across harsh land. We learned to be patient. We learned to make every action count because we could not afford to waste energy. He pointed at the squad reassembling in the arena below. These soldiers represent 10,000 years of learning and practice. We have been perfecting the art of projectile weapons since we threw our first spear at an animal. Every generation learned from the one before. Every war taught us new lessons. Every hunter passed down their knowledge. Kyle walked to the window overlooking the arena. Your energy weapons are powerful, but they made you lazy. You do not need to aim carefully because you have so much ammunition. You do not need to be patient because you can just keep firing. You rely on technology to do what we learned to do with our own minds and bodies. A Karathi official spoke up. But the stress of combat, the pressure of battle. How do you maintain such control? Jake Morrison answered from the arena, his voice coming through the communication system. Because we train for it. On Earth, we practice until these actions become automatic. We run drills until we can reload in our sleep. We shoot until aiming becomes as natural as breathing. And we do it without computers or fancy systems because we learned a long time ago that technology can fail. Skill does not fail, Danny added. And we communicate, always. We talk to each other, we watch each other's backs, we work as a team. That is not something you can program into a computer. That is trust built over years of training together. Jathik stood up slowly. His 4 eyes were all focused on the humans. These were supposed to be preliminary tests. Easy challenges to separate the worthy from the unworthy. He paused. But you have made them look easy. There is one final test remaining. Long-range accuracy in bad conditions. If you pass that, I will personally recommend your admission to the Peacekeepers. His tone had changed completely. The mockery was gone. Now there was respect in his voice. And maybe a little bit of fear. The final test was announced the next morning. Long-range shooting in terrible conditions. Jathik stood before the assembled observers and explained the challenge with a serious expression. The targets will be placed 1,000 meters away. That is more than half a mile in human measurements. The computer will simulate atmospheric interference, wind, and low visibility. No technological assistance beyond basic scopes will be allowed. This is the ultimate test of marksmanship, the aliens murmured among themselves. 1,000 meters was an extreme distance even for their advanced weapons. With interference and bad conditions, it would be nearly impossible. The Vrexian champion stepped forward first. His name was Kresh, and he had never officially missed a shot in his entire military career. He was a legend among his people. He carried the finest plasma rifle available, equipped with the most advanced targeting computer money could buy. Kresh entered the arena and took his position. The computer created the conditions. Fog rolled across the range. Wind indicators showed gusts from multiple directions. The targets were barely visible, just dark shapes in the distance. Kresh aimed carefully. His targeting computer worked frantically, trying to calculate the trajectory through the interference. He fired. The plasma bolt streaked through the air, but the atmospheric simulation scattered it. The bolt dissipated before reaching the target miss. He tried again and again. Sometimes his computer could not even lock onto the distant targets through the interference. Other times, the plasma simply lost cohesion over the extreme distance. When his turn ended, Kresh had managed 6 hits out of 15 targets. For a warrior who never missed, it was a humiliating performance. He left the arena with his head down. The watching Vrexians said nothing. What could they say? Their champion had failed. The Karathi champion went next. She was called Prisma, and she could bend light better than any of her species. She used this ability to see through the interference, to find the targets that others could not. Her particle beam was the finest weapon her civilization had ever created. Prisma did better than Kresh. She managed 8 hits. But even she could not overcome the fundamental problem. Energy weapons lost power and coherence over extreme distances. The laws of physics were not kind to plasma and particles traveling through 1,000 meters of simulated atmosphere. When she finished, she bowed to the observers and left quietly. 8 out of 15 was better than Kresh, but it was still a failure by her standards. Other species tried. None of them did better than 9 hits. Most did worse. The test was simply too difficult. The conditions were too harsh. The distance was too great. Finally, it was humanity's turn. Danny Pierce stood at the entrance to the arena with his squad. He looked at Corporal Ryan Martinez. "You are up, Ryan. Show them what a scout sniper can do." Ryan nodded and walked into the arena alone. He carried a rifle that looked ancient compared to the plasma weapons and particle beams. It was just metal and wood with a simple scope mounted on top. No computer. No heads-up display. No electronic assistance of any kind. The aliens watched with curiosity, some with pity. How could this primitive weapon compete with their advanced technology? Ryan walked to the firing line and looked downrange. The computer created the same terrible conditions. Fog, wind, low visibility. He could barely see the targets. He did not seem bothered. He lowered himself into a prone position, lying flat on the ground. His rifle rested on a simple bipod, just 2 metal legs to keep it steady. He looked through his scope, just glass and metal, no electronics anywhere. Ryan studied the wind indicators. He watched the fog patterns. He calculated distance, wind speed, elevation, even the rotation of the station they were on. He did all of this in his head, using knowledge passed down through generations of human marksmen. He controlled his breathing. Slow in, slow out. His heart rate dropped. His body became perfectly still. Target, he said quietly and squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked. 1,000 meters away, a target dropped. In the observation deck, every alien leaned forward. That was just luck. It had to be luck. Ryan worked the bolt of his rifle, smoothly ejecting the empty shell and chambering a new round. The motion was so practiced it looked effortless. He had done this 10,000 times, 100,000 times. It was as natural to him as breathing. Target, he said again and fired. Another target dropped. The observation deck went dead silent. The only sound was Ryan's rifle firing, the bolt working, and another target falling. Again and again. "This is impossible," a Draxian officer whispered, "without a targeting computer at this distance in these conditions." But Ryan kept shooting. He adjusted for each shot, reading the wind, feeling the tiny changes in the environment. His brain processed information faster than any computer. Not because he was superhuman, but because he had trained his entire adult life for exactly this. 15 shots. 15 targets. Every single one of them down. Ryan stood up, brushed dirt from his uniform, and slung his rifle over his shoulder. He walked out of the arena like he had just finished a routine training exercise. because for him it was routine. The scoreboard updated, 15 out of 15, 100% accuracy, distance 1,000 meters. Conditions extreme. Technological assistance none. Jothik stood up slowly. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. How, he asked simply. How is this possible? Kyle Harrison walked down from the observation deck to the arena floor. The other aliens parted to let him through. He stood where everyone could see him. You asked how this is possible, Kyle said. Let me tell you about human history. 10,000 years ago, we learned to throw spears. We learned that if we could kill from a distance, we did not have to fight with claws and teeth. So we practiced. We got better. He pointed at Ryan, who stood quietly with his rifle. 5,000 years ago, we invented the bow and arrow. We learned to hit targets from hundreds of feet away. We practiced more. We got better, Kyle smiled. 1,000 years ago, we invented gunpowder weapons. We learned to shoot lead balls from tubes. We practiced. We got better. 500 years ago, we refined our rifles. We learned about rifling, about ballistics, about wind and distance. We practiced. We got better. He turned to face Jothik directly, and we never stopped practicing. On Earth, we have competitions where ordinary civilians make shots at 2,000 meters. We have children who can hit targets at 500 meters. We have hunters who make impossible shots in mountains and forests and deserts. Not soldiers, just regular people who enjoy the challenge. A Karathi observer spoke up. But your weapons are primitive. They rely on chemical propellants and metal projectiles? Exactly, Kyle said. And that is their strength. A bullet once fired follows the laws of physics. It does not dissipate like plasma. It does not lose coherence like a particle beam. If you know the distance, the wind, the elevation, you can calculate exactly where it will go. And we have spent 10,000 years learning to make those calculations in our heads. Danny Pierce stepped forward. Your energy weapons are powerful in close and medium range, but you designed them to be easy to use. You added computers to do the aiming for you. You gave them massive ammunition capacity so you did not have to be careful. You made war easy, he paused. We never had that luxury. Our weapons required skill. They required patience. They required endless practice. So that is what we did. We built a culture around marksmanship. We made it a point of pride to make the impossible shot. Ryan spoke up from where he stood. Sir, if I may add something. That test you just gave me. On Earth, we have teenagers who could pass it. Not military-trained teenagers. Just kids who go shooting with their families on weekends. This is not special forces skill. This is just basic human capability. The observation deck erupted in shocked conversation. Teenagers, children, could do what their best champions could not. Jothik raised his hand for silence. When the room quieted, he spoke. I have been a warrior for 40 years. I have fought in 20 campaigns. I have trained the finest soldiers in the Vrexian military. He paused. And today I learned that I do not understand combat at all. The council chamber was packed the next day. Word had spread throughout the station about what the humans had done. Species that had not even been interested in the trials now crowded into every available space. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. The chair being called the session to order. It was a massive creature that existed partly in dimensions humans could not see. Its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. We are here to discuss the human petition to join the Peacekeepers. Commander Jothik, you oversaw the qualification trials. What is your recommendation? Jothik stood. He looked different than he had a few days ago. The arrogance was gone. Chair being council members, I must begin with an apology. I dismissed the humans as primitive and weak. I was wrong. I have never been more wrong about anything in my life. He gestured toward the human delegation. These beings have demonstrated capabilities that exceed our best warriors. Not through superior technology, not through genetic advantages, but through skill, discipline, and 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge. I recommend immediate acceptance into the Peacekeepers. Furthermore, I recommend that human instructors be assigned to all Peacekeeper training facilities. A murmur went through the chamber. Training facilities? He wanted humans to teach the rest of the galaxy? A Draxian counselor stood up. Commander Jothik, I understand the humans performed well in the trials. But surely you exaggerate. Our warriors have trained for decades with the finest weapons and technology. How can these humans with their primitive guns be superior? Jothik clicked his mandibles. Counselor, I watched a single human soldier achieve perfect accuracy at 1,000 meters with no technological assistance. I watched a human squad maintain 94% accuracy under sustained combat stress. I watched them do things that our best warriors with all our technology cannot do. He paused. They are not superior despite their primitive weapons. They are superior because of them. Another voice spoke up. It was Commander Vela of the Thresh Commonwealth. She was known throughout the galaxy as a brilliant tactical mind. I have spent the night reviewing every recording of the human trials. I have studied their movements, their communication patterns, their decision-making processes, and I have reached a concerning conclusion. The room went quiet. When Vela spoke, people listened. The humans are not just good at shooting, Vela continued. They have developed a complete combat philosophy that we have forgotten. They understand that ammunition is finite, so they make every shot count. They understand that technology can fail, so they rely on skill. They understand that individual excellence means nothing without teamwork, so they communicate constantly. She turned to face the human delegation. Ambassador Harrison, I have a question. How many humans can shoot at the level we witnessed in these trials? Kyle stood. Commander Vela, that is difficult to answer. Our military has millions of soldiers. Most of them can shoot at or near the level you saw, but military personnel are not the whole story. He pulled up a holographic display. On Earth, we have approximately 400 million civilians who own firearms. Many of them practice regularly. We have competitive shooters who can outperform our military in specific skills. We have hunters who make shots in conditions that would challenge any soldier. Shooting is not just a military skill for us. It is woven into our culture. The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. 400 million? Armed civilians? Who could shoot at military levels? A Karathi counselor stood up, her crystalline body ringing with agitation. You are saying that nearly a third of your population is armed and trained in weapons use. That is a warrior culture. That is dangerous. Danny Pierce stepped forward. With respect, counselor, you misunderstand. We are not a warrior culture. Most of those 400 million people will never fight in a war. They hunt for food. They compete in sports. They collect firearms as a hobby. They practice shooting because they find it challenging and enjoyable. Amy Sullivan added, on Earth, a parent might take their child to a shooting range the same way you might take your child to learn music or art. It is a skill we pass down through families. My grandfather taught my father. My father taught me. I will teach my children. It is tradition. Jake Morrison spoke up. And that tradition makes us better soldiers. By the time someone joins the Earth military, they often already know how to shoot. We do not have to teach them the basics. We just refine what they already know and add tactical training. That is why our soldiers seem so skilled. They have been preparing their whole lives. Jothik nodded. This is what I meant when I said we do not understand combat. We have made warfare about technology and overwhelming force. The humans never forgot that warfare is about skill, discipline, and the will to win. They never stopped being hunters. An older counselor from a species called the Meridian stood. She had been silent until now. I am troubled by this revelation. The humans possess a capability that we cannot match. Their entire population is trained in weapons use. Their culture glorifies marksmanship. And now they want to join the peacekeepers, giving them access to our technology and tactical knowledge. How do we know they will not turn on us? The chamber went very quiet. It was the question everyone had been thinking, but no one had wanted to ask. Kyle took a deep breath. Counselor, that is a fair concern. Let me address it directly. Yes, humans are good at fighting. Yes, we have a strong tradition of weapons skills, but we also have a strong tradition of something else. Peace. He pulled up another display. Earth has spent most of the last 80 years at peace. Not because we cannot fight, but because we choose not to. We learned through terrible wars that fighting should be the last option, not the first. We developed rules of warfare. We created treaties. We built international organizations dedicated to preventing conflict. Kyle looked around the chamber. We do not want to join the peacekeepers because we love war. We want to join because we believe in what you stand for. Protecting the weak. Preventing conflicts. Maintaining order. These are values we share. Ryan Martinez stepped forward. If I may add something, counselors, I am a sniper. I can kill a target from over a mile away, but I have spent my entire military career hoping I never have to. Every human soldier trains to fight, but we also train to avoid fighting. We learn de-escalation. We study diplomacy. We understand that the best battle is the one you never have to fight. Katie Wells nodded. Our instructors used to tell us that a truly skilled warrior wins without fighting. That speed and violence are sometimes necessary, but wisdom is always necessary. We do not just teach our soldiers to shoot. We teach them to think, Ben Foster added, and we have accountability. On Earth, every shot fired in combat must be justified. Every action must be explained. We do not just give people weapons and send them out. We train them, we supervise them, and we hold them responsible for their choices. Vela spoke again. I believe them, counselors. I have studied their military doctrine. They have rules of engagement. They have ethical training. They have systems in place to prevent abuse of power. In fact, their safeguards are more comprehensive than many species already in the Peacekeepers. Jathik stood again. I will add my voice to this. I have spoken with these humans extensively over the past few days. They are not warmongers. They are warriors, yes, but warriors who understand the cost of war. That makes them exactly the kind of beings we need in the Peacekeepers. The chair being spoke, its voice filling the chamber. The council will vote. All in favor of accepting humanity into the Peacekeepers. Indicate now. Lights began appearing around the chamber. Green for yes, red for no. Kyle watched nervously as the votes came in. Green, green, red, green, green. More green than red, but there were still many red votes. Finally, the count finished. The chair being announced the result. The motion passes. Humanity is accepted into the Peacekeepers. Furthermore, the proposal to assign human instructors to training facilities is approved. Welcome to the galaxy, humans. We hope you will help make us all safer. Kyle felt his knees go weak with relief. They had done it. Against all odds, despite the mockery and doubt, they had proven themselves. But Jathik approached him after the session ended. Ambassador Harrison, understand that many species will still fear you. They will watch you closely. They will look for any excuse to say they were right to doubt you. Kyle nodded. I understand, Commander. We will prove ourselves not just in trials, but in service. We will show the galaxy that humans can be trusted. Jathik's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. I believe you will. And when you do, the galaxy will be better for it. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the Peacekeepers. The human instructors had arrived at training facilities across the galaxy. At first, the alien soldiers had been reluctant to learn from them. After all, these were the primitives with their old-fashioned guns. What could they possibly teach species with plasma rifles and particle beams? But that attitude was changing. At the main Peacekeeper training facility on Kendra Prime, Sergeant Lisa Brooks stood in front of a class of 40 alien recruits. They came from a dozen different species. Some had 4 arms. Some had scales. Some breathed methane instead of oxygen and attended via environmental suits. Good morning, Lisa said. Today we're going to talk about patience. A young Vrexian in the front row clicked his mandibles dismissively. Patience is for those who lack the firepower to win quickly. Lisa smiled. She had heard this attitude many times over the past months. Really? Let me show you something. She pulled up a video of a human sniper in a historical Earth conflict. The soldier lay motionless in tall grass for 3 days, waiting for a single shot at an enemy commander. When the moment came, he took the shot and ended a battle that would have killed thousands. That soldier waited for 72 hours, Lisa said. He barely moved. He barely ate. He just waited for the perfect moment, and when it came, he did not hesitate. 1 shot, 1 target, mission accomplished. The Vrexian looked uncomfortable, but with our weapons, we could have simply destroyed the entire area. Yes, Lisa agreed, and killed hundreds of civilians in the process, and wasted enormous amounts of ammunition, and revealed your position to every enemy in the region. Is that really better? The classroom went quiet. Lisa continued. We are not teaching you to use worse weapons. We are teaching you to think differently. Your technology is wonderful. Your weapons are powerful. But technology without skill is just noise and waste. Over the next weeks, she taught them things that seemed simple, but were revolutionary to species that had relied on targeting computers for generations. She taught them to estimate distances by eye. She taught them to read wind by watching grass and trees. She taught them to control their breathing and steady their aim without electronic assistance. At first, the progress was slow. The alien recruits struggled with concepts that seemed basic to humans. But gradually they improved. And as they improved, they started to understand why the humans were so dangerous. One day, a Karathi recruit named Felsha approached Lisa after class. "Instructor Brooks, I have a question. Why do humans practice skills they may never use? Most of your population will never fight in a war. Why do they still learn to shoot?" Lisa thought about it. "Felsha, humans have a saying. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. We practice these skills not because we want to use them, but because we might need them. And when we need them, we want to be ready." She pulled up images of human shooting competitions. "We also practice because it is challenging. Humans like to test themselves. Making a difficult shot, hitting a tiny target, overcoming harsh conditions. These things make us feel accomplished. It is not about violence. It is about mastery." Felsha's crystalline body shimmered with understanding. "So the shooting skills are a side effect of your desire to challenge yourselves?" "Exactly," Lisa said. "We turned a survival skill into a sport, a tradition, and a culture. And that is why we are so good at it. We have been practicing not out of necessity, but out of love for the challenge." Meanwhile, at a peacekeeper base on the frontier world of Terminus, Danny Pierce and his squad were showing the galaxy what human tactics could do in real combat situations. A distress call had come from a civilian transport. Pirates had seized the ship and taken hostages. The local peacekeeper force had surrounded the ship, but they were stuck. If they attacked with their energy weapons, they might hit the hostages. If they did nothing, the pirates might kill the hostages anyway. Then the human team arrived. "Status report," Danny said to the Draxian commander in charge. "We have 40 hostages on board. 15 pirates. They are holding the hostages in the main cargo bay. Any use of plasma weapons risks killing civilians." Danny nodded. "We can handle this. We need blueprints of the ship in 30 minutes. The Draxian commander looked skeptical. "What will you do in 30 minutes? "Plan," Danny said simply. The human team studied the ship's layout. They identified every entrance, every corridor, every possible position. Then they started making calculations. Distance, angles, sight lines. "We can do this without firing a shot inside the cargo bay," Ryan said, pointing at the blueprint. "But it will require precision we are not sure the locals can match." "Then we do it ourselves," Amy said. They explained their plan to the Draxian commander. He looked shocked. "You want to breach from 6 different points simultaneously, eliminate all 15 pirates in under 5 seconds, and do it without hitting a single hostage? That is impossible." "For you, maybe," Jake said. "For us, it is just Tuesday." The team moved into position. They attached to the outside of the ship using magnetic grips. Each human had a specific target. They had studied the positions of the pirates through the ship's hull using thermal scanners. They knew exactly where each pirate stood. "On my mark," Danny whispered through the communication system. 3, 2, 1, mark. 6 human soldiers fired simultaneously. The bullets were special low-penetration rounds designed not to go through the ship's hull. They punched through the external wall, traveled exactly the distance calculated, and hit their targets. 15 pirates dropped before they even knew they were under attack. Not one hostage was scratched. The human team breached the ship, secured the hostages, and had everyone safely off the vessel in under 3 minutes. The watching peacekeeper forces stood in stunned silence. The Draxian commander approached Danny afterward. "I have been in the peacekeepers for 20 years. I have never seen anything like that." "How did you do it?" Danny smiled. "We calculated the distance, angle, and penetration depth for each shot. We practiced the timing until we could all fire within 1/10 of a second of each other. And we trusted our training and each other. That is all. That is all," the commander repeated. "You made the impossible look easy." "It was not impossible," Amy said. "It was just difficult. And humans have never been afraid of difficult." Word of the rescue spread throughout the peacekeepers. Humans were not just good at shooting targets in controlled conditions. They could apply their skills in real-world situations where lives depended on precision. More requests came in for human instructors. More commanders wanted human teams assigned to their units. The species that had mocked them 6 months ago were now requesting their help. At the Peacekeeper headquarters, Kyle Harrison met with Jathik and other senior commanders. They wanted to discuss expanding the human presence in the organization. "We need more of your people," Jathik said bluntly. "Your instructors are transforming how we train. Your combat teams are solving problems we thought were unsolvable. How many more humans can Earth send? Kyle smiled. Commander, Earth has millions of trained soldiers and millions more civilians with relevant skills. We can send as many as you need. But I have a suggestion. Go on, Jothik said. Do not just copy our methods. Learn the principles behind them. We are good at shooting because we practice, because we value precision, because we make every shot count. Those principles can apply to any weapon, even your energy weapons. Teach your soldiers to think like humans think, to be patient, to be precise, to be disciplined. Vela nodded. The ambassador is right. The human advantage is not their weapons. It is their mindset. If we can learn that mindset, we become better warriors ourselves. A Karathi commander spoke up. But changing culture takes generations. We need results now. Then use both approaches, Kyle said. Keep your technology, but add human discipline. Use your plasma rifles, but shoot them the way we shoot our ballistic weapons. Controlled fire, aimed shots. Every trigger pull with purpose. Over the next year, that is exactly what happened. The peacekeepers did not abandon their advanced weapons, but they started using them with human precision. They stopped relying solely on targeting computers. They practiced manual aiming. They learned to make every shot count, and it made them incredibly more effective. Pirates who had once laughed at peacekeeper patrols now fled at the first sign of their ships. Hostile forces that had once stood and fought now surrendered, rather than face peacekeepers trained by humans. The galaxy became noticeably safer. One day, Lisa stood in front of a graduating class at Kendra Prime. The alien recruits who had once mocked human methods now stood at attention, holding their weapons with proper discipline. You came here thinking humans were primitive, Lisa said. You thought our weapons were weak and our methods were outdated. Some of you have learned differently. You have learned that primitive does not mean ineffective, that old does not mean obsolete, and that sometimes the best way forward is to remember the lessons of the past. She looked at each recruit. You are now peacekeepers. You carry the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, but more importantly, you carry knowledge that has been 10,000 years in the making. Use it wisely. Use it with precision. And remember that every shot you fire represents a choice. Make good choices.